Vamos. Bienvenidos, señores y chicas y chicas, and to everyone online. We're 2 months ago, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about tour through America and Central South America.
There is going to be an interval about self-scripts. Okay, so welcome. We're going to start reading the reporter about halfway through our trip. And so this is how he described us by the bicycle. And all the way through our trip. And what he wrote in his article about us kind of sums up really the trip. So I thought I'd start by reading that to you. So, with the desire to discover the world well, and his wife Raquel, long journey across the American continent 5 months ago. It was in September 23 when the English couple left a peculiar bicycle from Canada, the country where one of their children lives. Miguel says that he doesn't like football, but he loves cycling, which is why he decided to make this trip in means of transport that does not cause any harm to the environment. Although he speaks a little Spanish, but finds it difficult to understand the words, he shares little of his experience with his wife, with whom he travels about 80 kilometers a day. We love Mexico. We've been in Mexico for 3 months. We like everything about Mexico, the people, the food. We don't eat meat, but we like gorditas and nachos. We don't have those in England. It's very different, says Miguel. Miguel's goal is to reach North America. In that time, get to know the people, their culture, and the natural beauty that exists in the countries that they pass through.
So to give you a little summary about many of you probably know our subject lives in just north of Vancouver, lives in Whistler, starting Vancouver up there. We spent 2 months cycling through Americas, through Washington, Oregon, and California. Crossed into Mexico, went down the crossed into what we call mainland Mexico, worked our way through. We faced a big decision about what to do, but we ended up really keen that we missed it. We made sure we had a convoluted route that took in all those locations. So we went through Belize, well, we went from Guatemala into Belize, then we went back into Guatemala, and south of Honduras, and then got out of Costa Rica and Panama. From Panama, we got on a boat, we sailed to Cartagena in northern Colombia, cycled down and up into the Andes, through Colombia, finished just about this line across the equator, Ecuador. So it's about 10,000 miles, about 21 times the equivalent time of Everest. 12 different countries.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of like thinking about what it was that inspired us, how we came to be doing this trip, well, we have to take a little journey back in time and think about the things that inspired us. So that handsome chap there is that's me for my first ever bicycle tour. So I did that tour with my dad. Hello, Dad, you're online from Worcester. So if you recognise that, you might be able to spot that. We cycled from Estelle to Wicklow, a couple of nights staying in youth hostels, and worked our way back. So that was my first ever time on a bicycle tour. I think I probably got infected with the love of being on a bike and talking about that point onwards. Rachel's story is different. It probably leads to the same point which we do on the tour.
Really have cycling background, although I'm sort of very pleased with my first bicycle there. But I did grow up doing a lot of travelling. I grew up in Zambia, and I did a lot of travelling with my family and a lot of road tripping and camping in the bush. So I think all those things, sort of choosing to travel onwards as a way to holiday, certainly is kind of my favourite place to take a break.
So here we are then, having for our lives, and ended up on day one, absolutely leaving Vancouver, a few seconds away from our very first pedal stroke out to Rachel's cousin's house. And we set off right in that direction. A few moments later, we realised we were on 80 degrees in the wrong direction. So, direction of the cars, most of Rachel's cousins in New Zealand. We then reached down to get along the water and realised we'd managed to set off with empty bottles. A bit later on in the day, we come up to the front and I realised I'd not fastened some straps down tightly and one of Rachel's shoes had fallen off the front. So maybe it wasn't, the best start to our day, but the best start to the whole tour. But we plugged away and okay. It wasn't very auspicious for the start, but we did carry on. And a lot of people have kind of asked us, well, why tandem? What is it about tandem riding? Why did you choose to do that tandem? And to me, I think this picture kind of captures why tandem riding is a thing that we love. That's the day in Colombia. It's the end of the long day, so it's arriving into town at rush hour. And we ended up having to cycle further than we thought that day because of accommodation had fallen through. So we were tired. And yet, because we're on a tandem, neither of us got left behind. We were arriving in town, and there was traffic lights and vehicles. And because we were on a tandem, we never got separated at traffic lights. And because we were on a tandem, we could talk, we could share, kind of check navigation. Is it left there, Rachel? Is it right? And we could
Google Maps on my phone, holding it up with one hand.
And the very fact that we actually got that photo is because Rachel could be on the back. Rachel can be on the back, she can take photos, and quite often at the end of the day, we look back through the photos and the pictures of things that I would be absolutely oblivious to because Rachel was there on the back. So I think for all of those reasons, that's kind of why we love tandeming. And you probably have to realise if you're going to embark on a trip like this on a tandem, I know there's a few tandem riders in the room, so this won't be a surprise to them. But when you're doing a trip like that on a tandem, months can go by, and the only time when you're not within touching distance is when one or other of you is on the toilet. So, Rachel.
Okay, so we're just going to show you some of the roads that we cycled on, just to share a little bit why you would cycle. Because a lot of people say, why on earth would you cycle? That's surely not a holiday. But we love riding our bikes. And hopefully these pictures will inspire you to sort of see why. It's a very sort of sensory experience riding a bike. You feel the kind of air and the wind blowing across your skin. You can hear the sounds clearly, the howling monkeys in the jungle, cicadas in the bush, woodpeckers in the trees, and you can smell, the lorry full of onions going past, the lorry full of pineapples going past, whatever. You're kind of right up there and your senses are stimulated. So it's a really wonderful way to travel. Really nice pace to sort of see things and stop and look at things as well. That's my sidetrack.
So James, apologies, I did make the request to show lots of landscape photos. There's a few here. I hope you can provide some inspiration to the impression you could write there. So we've shown you a few pictures of some of the nice stuff. It was pretty amazing, but you know, we've got to be honest with you, it wasn't nice the whole way. Occasionally you'd find signs like that. We thought we had to stop taking a picture of that because we like the irony of the sign saying to drop rubbish, and it was to be being used as the communal rubbish. That was probably more extreme. We have to level with you that it wasn't perfect the whole time. And one of the things, you know, the things that we're going to explore through the talk. So one of the things about food, you often get asked, you know, how on earth did you manage to keep yourself fed during that whole time? And being on a bike in this kind of thing, it's pretty amazing because, well, yeah, you exercise and you get up, you can eat whenever you want, whatever you want. So, it's been a little bit of a food journey. Quotes related to food that we went through our diets in preparation because we've got a diary every day and we found several comments. So it must have been a bit of about eating. So, you know, so we've got the thing with early starts is they bring on the breakfast even earlier. Nana and dulce de leche wrapped third breakfast. Second lunch stop. We realised it was the fifth meal of the day. In a restaurant on Boxing Day, Mike had a massive milkshake followed by two main meals. And proof, yeah, I polished all of that off and could have eaten more. So pretty much after we left America, we started eating out in roadside restaurants. The price was really cheap. It's in City Lot too. We wanted to experience the food, we wanted to experience the culture. And this is kind of typical of the place that we would find ourselves in. This is a place in Mexico. It's kind of filled tortillas called gorditas with all sorts of different fillings, and often run by relatives. A couple of sisters maybe, and several generations working in there. And there'd typically be a little bit of a pattern around when you go in. We'd walk in and we'd get looked at, and then we'd manage to kind of communicate in we communicate what we wanted, and we'd be able to cover that, and then bring it to us, and then eventually the questions would start coming out. And they realised that we had a little bit of Spanish, and after what being quite a frosty reception, we come into, people get really, really warm, and they want to know about the farm and our family, and we typically end up with a few selfies with them. And at this place, I've chosen this photo when I went to pay, rather than having written the table number on that bit, it just said at the top, Gringos. So I'm going to hand over to Rachel. She's going to take on a little bit of food journey.
Okay, so some foods came and went, and some foods we saw. We met again later in our trip. So this is huevos, eggs, and in Mexico it was called huevos mexicana because it's the colours of the Mexican flag. We met again in Colombia, and the dish there was called huevos pericos, which is parakeet. So it's actually the colours of parakeet. So that's one of the things. Salsas, we thoroughly enjoyed getting fresh salsas with every meal that you have. And we were very disappointed to get across the border into Guatemala and never did we see a fresh salsa again. And I'm not keen on spicy food, but these are made of chilies. and they're just tasty rather than spicy. Absolutely gorgeous. This is a dish from Costa Rica called gallo pinto, and it's rice and beans. Gallo pinto means speckled hen. And we crossed the border into Panama after Costa Rica, and then I asked for gallo pinto for his breakfast. They just looked through him and served what they were going to serve anyway. So yes, we never saw gallo pinto again. Back to Mexico, always serve tortillas. Usually things will contain like this wrapped in a tea towel, made of maize or made of wheat flour. And sometimes this maize flour is used to make these gorditas that Max already mentioned. Gorditas come with a range of lovely fillings. We have 3, 10, up to 5. And this is a tortilla made of blue corn. That's empanada, I don't know if someone might be able to correct me. But again, the lovely sauce on the side. Huarache, so that's also made with the with beans pressed into the dough, and then arranged toppings. Really filling, really good breakfast for breakfast.
There's a point of interest for actually is that the type of sandal is like that because it's sandal shaped.
Then we crossed into Guatemala, where they still have tortillas. They don't have these beautiful presses that they have in Mexico, which make them nice and thick. So instead, they hand cut the dough into a tortilla, and it's much more heavy. So we really miss the Mexican tortillas on Guatemala. In Belize is very multicultural. English speaking, it's a really interesting country to visit after having been in the Spanish world for quite a while. And this was some Caribbean food called blackjack. So here you've got all your breakfast within pastry and deep fried. So there's eggs and beans and everything in there. And some pineapple and mango on the side. And it was absolutely delicious. And a bit of a change from what we did. Into El Salvador. The pizza banks there. That's these similar sort of filled bread kind of things. And then also this amazing crunchy salad, drenched in lime. That was the first time we came across them. We really enjoyed that. And finally, into Panama, what's called tortilla is now kind of pronounced deep fried disc. So it's something different but nice change and very delicious. Please note coffee in this picture because he struggled with coffee in Mexico. It's very much DIY Nescafe, so you get a cup of hot water, some coffee grounds, some sugar, so that make your own coffee. It wasn't great. Since we crossed into Guatemala, which is a coffee growing country, and onwards, we've got delicious coffee wherever we went, so we found out. Also in these restaurants is the most amazing fruit juices. So they usually have the fruit juice of the day. So in this case it was strawberry. And in the next case, pineapple. And they're just sort of frequently cut over and over. And they're so refreshingly hot, cycling. And we've been missing them to come back and be absolutely delicious.
Yeah, it was an absolute treat to be able to take changed and evolved as we went along. It was a really nice kind of reminder that we were making progress. When one thing stopped occurring, something else did crop up. It was great. So one of the things, the next other thing that we'd like to talk about with you is in England when you ride a bike, you very much have to share with cars and maybe some buses and maybe trucks and things, but we experienced a huge variety of kind of things, and just kind of generic things on the road. First and foremost, you often see a lot of horses. This one's kind of rather being ridden, it's being dragged along the road there. This one I put on because it reminds me of a story I want to share with you. We were in Costa Rica and we were riding along the road, and it was a big road. And I was pretty convinced it was like a motorway type road, and I've been saying we were riding along, kind of anxious that we shouldn't have been on this road. And we're on a straight shot. It really does feel like it's not the kind of road that you're meant to be on a bike. And what could we do? The only alternative would be to backtrack to another big loop, and shall we anyway be carried on riding. Went on the next cut, and saw a horse and cart trotting towards us, and kind of figured, well, if a horse and cart's okay, we're probably all right as well. So yeah, horses we saw a lot.
Just do for the stream, can you? Yeah.
Yours as well, please. More towards your face, yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
The classic American school was American. We thought we said goodbye to those when we crossed into Mexico, but not so. They were in every country all the way through Mexico or through Central America. Once they're finished out of service in America, they get shipped down and they get used for public transport. So in Guatemala, they get brightly coloured. And look at this machine here. I don't think those exhaust pipes fancy, but they look amazing. And that was in Panama, so they walked all the way down there. That's American school buses all the way down there. We noticed quite a lot in some places there will be no public car ownership. You just wouldn't see cars on the road. And what you would see is buses like that. You'd see jeeps like this that have this kind of crossover, which is somewhere between a bus and somewhere between a taxi type thing. So it would be like you could book it to go somewhere, but for your sole use, you end up sharing it with a bunch of other people. Kind of some tuk-tuks all over the place, transporting people around. So lots of kind of these public transport systems, offering, not just people, but all their luggage and chickens and groceries and everything being shipped around. We shared a little bit with all of that. That kind of probably speaks for itself in terms of how much stuff you might expect to see in any of these vehicles. If the back is struggling to make that out, there is a vehicle underneath all of that stuff that's for sale. We did see a lot of trucks and a lot of trucks. If anyone wants to make a fortune, you can start a business selling silencers to trucks in the Americas. They just don't fit into trucks, so when everyone's going downhill, they're not entirely noise of the engines coming out the exhaust. And we met this guy Elder, and we were approaching the border with Nicaragua, and we ended up as we felt like we were a long way from the border. We started seeing a lot of trucks, and we were riding along. We stopped and chatted to this guy to find out what was going on. He was waiting to cross the border. Chat as we did about all the sort of usual stuff, where we're from, where we're going into. And he had driven from Mexico, he was driving into Nicaragua with a container load of nappies in the back for his full hampers. We exchanged WhatsApp numbers, and he was telling us his progress. We kind of rode up to the border and got through, and then the next day we rode on, and then the next day after that, we got a message from Elder saying he was finally through the border. It had taken him 52 hours to cross that border, and that was the norm in that country. So, yeah, you've got to have some patience to do that, haven't you? We saw loads of other cyclists, whether they were transporting things, whether they were leisure riders, kids having fun, and then, all sorts of contraptions like this for sort of, local transport and things. But probably the thing that we saw most was motorbikes. We saw them everywhere, and they were really democratic. Children rode them, women rode them, blokes rode them, entire families rode them. You can't make out, but that woman there has a baby in a sling on the front, so she's got a newborn baby on. There's one and two kids that she's collected from school, so they really were a form of transport that everybody used. There is a story to this one, so that is a motorbike taxi. And the guy on the back needed a lift up with his gas canister, and the motorbike taxi turned up and did that in Ireland when he balanced it on. And he's holding on. There's a piece of string there. And he's holding it in place with. And that was perfectly acceptable off they rolled up the street, and we can only assume that it reached their destination. Yeah, taxis were their motorbikes were used for everything. Beatles in Mexico, we couldn't travel forward to Mexico. I haven't taken a picture of them before. But other great classic cars, the Renault 4 featured one, as did livestock. So this guy's herding his goats down. We stopped and he spoke to us and said, I'm sorry, can you speak a little bit more slowly? I've got a little bit of Spanish. you know, that classic thing happened that he just spoke actually just as quickly as before, but more loud. So yeah, wildlife was a bit of a thing along the road. So yeah, that was fascinating for us because there was variety in the other projects. But I'm just going to tell you, we're going to move on to now because at the end of every day we need to sort out
somewhere to stay. So our preference would always be camping. So we've got tents at the back there so you can have a look at the size of it. It served us well. In America, it was brilliant. There's this network of state parks, and they have these actual hiker biker sites with our very much varying facilities, quite no shower, no tap or anything. You've got your water from the creek. But nonetheless, they were a great red site, weren't they? Another source of places to stay was which is an online community of people who want to host cyclotourists or cyclotourists who need somewhere to stay for the night. And we've hosted quite a few people here on stage, so it's nice to be hosted ourselves, I guess. This is Shane and Jim's house, and the reason they're not in the picture is because they weren't there. They let us use their house while they were gone on holiday, and we used their washing machine, and we cooked our dinner, and we had a nice sleep in their bed. So kind, weren't they?
yeah.
This is Emily, also a Warm Showers host in America. She had an encyclopedic knowledge of all the roads of California and gave us great route advice. She's absolutely not a cyclist, but she wanted to host cyclists. She fed us 2 3-course meals, dinner and breakfast. We even had toast for breakfast, which was really exciting because we hadn't had any up to that point on the trip. And she's got a little rucksack on. In her rucksack, this was us setting off and her setting off to walk her cat. One of her cats, she had 6 cats and 1 dog, and she was a lovely person to stay with. We stayed in the bike shop one night. That was probably one of our most exciting nights, being trusted with a bike shop. So these two, Dina and her husband, let us stay in their bike shop, trusted us with their bikes, all the customers' bikes, everything, and locked us in, came and let us out in the morning, luckily, and yeah, that was a kind of fun place to bunker down in our sleeping bags.
Because when we left America, the sort of the system, there was a system of kind of host, a WhatsApp group that you could join and contact you.
Yeah, so almost, yeah, not Warm Showers, but people who wanted to welcome you to their country and offer you somewhere to stay if you needed it. From Mexico onwards, there was a group for each country.
Like in Colombia.
Yeah, so this is a family in Colombia, so there's 4 of them in the family, and they had a couple of other people staying with them. A small house, they still wanted to fit us in. We slept in the front room, in our sleeping bags again. They fed us an amazing meal. They were so kind, they were so welcoming. They had so little, and part of the house was open to the elements, and it rained that night, so you had to kind of dash through the rain to get to the loo. But nonetheless, they were kind of wanted to host us and welcome us to their country. It was very, very touching.
And so as well as camping, as well as staying with hosts, we made use of hotels as well. And this one we spotted on the map, and we pulled off and went nice. And we said, "Have you got a room?" And they replied, "Yes. How many hours would you like?" So there is a network of hotels like this that you can book by the hour, and in families like the one that you've seen there, where there's a lot of people living in a house. It's a way for couples to get a bit of private time together and rent a room for a few hours. Thankfully for us, they did a nightly rate, and perfectly spotless, nothing seedy about it at all. We had a great stay there.
This was one night we were looking for somewhere to wild camp or camp anywhere, and we couldn't find anywhere. So we came across this migrant centre attached to a church and asked if they would let us camp there, and they said yes. So we set up our tent under a covered area beside the church, and the price we had to pay was, first of all, choir practice, which went on for quite some time, and then a very long prayer meeting, which also went on for a very long time. But it was somewhere safe and comfortable to stay, wasn't it? We were very grateful. This was we kind of called him our sort of fairy godfather in Panama. So this was Francisco, who we hooked up with through Warm Showers. We never met him either. he first of all invited us to stay at his finca, camping in this palapa, as they're called. And we woke up in the morning to the lovely smell of coriander, as one of his workers was chopping up the coriander from the field. And he invited us to stay further south. He had another place that we could take refuge. And imagine our delight when we turned up and this is where we were. So again, we didn't meet Francisco here, but we were invited to stay on the veranda and use his wonderful infinity pool and make ourselves at home. So we put our tent up on the veranda and had a lovely night.
And until the point we actually climbed in our tent, we just felt like millionaires staying in this tent. Yeah, look, it's all ours, we're hanging out. Like, oh, actually, no, we were actually camping in the tent on the veranda, but it was amazing. So that yeah, I mean, as well as, we're kind of hopefully giving you a bit of a flavour of the different places where we stay, because that was something we had to kind of arrange and work out each day. So that's us camped under a road there. And they're brilliant to camp under culverts. If you can just spot one on the map and spot it during the day, and there's no traffic around, you can duck off, get underneath, completely out of sight, really silent. That was actually a frosty night. We got shelter from the frost there and had a really snug little night there, didn't we? And Rachel, have you? No, you're not doing that. Okay. That's for next time then. And we just wanted to, because one of the things she's doing there is writing the diary. You can see our cooking stuff there. So there's about a little evening routine that we would get into. So there's other places that we camped. You kind of got to be a bit creative, and so we were cycling along a quite busy, exposed road, and we were looking, there's no really to get out of sight. And then we saw, what about that abandoned building there? And sure enough, there was a little entrance in, and it was not too dilapidated inside, and we could get pitched up. And you could see Rachel there; she's all in a down jacket. It was a pretty cold, windy night, and it gave us some shelter from the wind. So you kind of got to be a little bit creative about where you stay, and we found some each and every night. So we're just going to a little reel of photos showing you some of the places that we stayed. It was great to wake up in these places, and we did not take it for granted at all.
So as well as finding somewhere to stay each night, we needed to kind of keep resupplied. So one of the things that was an everyday task was looking for water. We carried about 4 litres a day, which wasn't quite enough to see us through the day and the night. And then we had a sort of spare bag that we'd carry another 6 litres in. But every day we were on the lookout for water. So it was great if there was a tap, or in America, a faucet. And some of the campsites there had taps, and the service stations in America have got these ginormous solar fountains, and there was always one which just did water that we could nip in and fill our bottles with. So that was great when that happened. One day we accidentally filled out with sparkling water, didn't we? And got a bit of a surprise when we had our first drink out of the bottle that day. Yeah. So in America as well, I mentioned before that quite a few of the campsites were really basic, and we didn't have a tap with water coming out. So we got into using our water filter pretty early on in America, filtering from streams. So it's hanging on the bike at the back, so we brought our bike in for you to have a look at some point. But the filter's hanging on there, but we used it pretty much every day, didn't we, Mike? Whichever country we were in.
Yeah, whether it was filling from a river like that, or once we got into countries where the water wasn't drinkable, then we would often, if we were in a hotel, we would filter the tap water.
Once we got to Mexico, they have this amazing network of purificadas, as they're called, so water purifying stations. So sometimes they're staffed, and you get to interact with the people running them, and sometimes they're just like a cupboard in the wall that you just put some coins in. And we just delighted in the fact that we could refill our bottles that we had with us rather than having to buy yet more plastic. And we kind of had a lot of fun going off down back roads and trying to find these places, and yeah, it was interesting. And what was great about them is they washed all our bottles with hot soapy water before they refilled them, so it was a really good way to kind of keep hygienic, wasn't it?
Yeah, and literally for pennies, just getting all that, fresh water.
Sometimes we did have to buy it. Once we got out of Mexico, there didn't seem to be a purificada kind of system, and many of those countries you couldn't drink from the tap. There's something to not take for granted that we're able to do here. So we did have to buy water sometimes, and that's from a little plastic bag, which seemed quite low impact. Sometimes it was these bigger bottles, the gallon bottles. And that day was really, really hot, and we were so thirsty, and we just got this gallon of ice cold water, and then downed
the
it.
gallon straight down between us. Yeah, so the other thing that was kind of, there's these regular things that you have to keep on top of. So we never, although you always have to be thinking about water, it was never stressful, but we never ran out. It's just always in your mind, like, where are we next going to get some water? And the other thing was similar in that respect, was thinking about, well, where were we going to buy fuel for the stove? We used the Trangia stove, we've got it set up at the back there if you're not familiar, so it burns alcohol. And we've made use in advance of there's an online table which lists where you can buy fuel for Trangias and the name of it in pretty much most countries around the world. So there we were setting off from Canada on day one with a bottle of paint thinners strapped to the bike, because paint thinners in Canada is pure alcohol. When we got into America, we found ourselves going in and out of garages all the time, because in America you can get pure alcohol, which is he's nodding. It's a petrol additive, it's an antifreeze, and so you can add that, you burn that. And then in Mexico, there's dedicated shops selling alcohol. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited to find out the shop there, and that was all it sold. And what delighted us even more was walking in there and finding a nun buying 5 litres of it. There was usually a little bit of searching involved in order to try and find and track down alcohol. That was in a big city, so I had a shop. It would always be somewhere, and usually be a bit of a chase around, and asking in one place, and I think they've got it down there, and maybe in there. And in some places, you go into a shop and ask for it. And we went in one, and I was like, yeah, and I'm like, what can I have? So we reached under the counter and reached out a filled up Coke bottle that hadn't, that had the label changed at all, and handed this over. And this, it would have been deadly to drink. And there he was handing over a hot bottle full of this alcohol. And that place in Mexico as well, we were asking for someone, we got directed and escorted actually, someone walked with us and took us and stood and pushed us into an off license, and I was thinking, oh no, he thinks I want some booze. I'm asking for alcohol for the stove. I was like, well, I can't really kind of get out of this. I'm going to have to walk in and go through the motion of asking for some of this stuff. Walked up to the counter and said, you've got me this 96% alcohol. And you're like, yeah, and reached up beside the vodka and brought down a bottle of burning alcohol for burning. And, yeah, so we managed to track it down everywhere. It was usually a bit of a fun and adventure in finding him.
So I'm just going to read you, we mentioned writing a diary every day, and so we're writing it there in camp. So usually we'd get into camp and one of us would set up the tent, one would sort out the bedding, and then one of us would get on with writing the diary, and the other one would start cooking, I guess. So just to sort of finish off this section, the importance of getting water, I thought I'd just read an excerpt from the diary. So this is it.
When was it from?
Exactly 1 year ago. So this was us on the road 1 year ago.
And where were we?
Mexico. Passed through an unmanned checkpoint and to the mini-mart. My goodness, what a scene. We, like everyone else, were so happy to see a shop that we all piled in and spent. They had no bread, but I bought some tinned peaches, which I had a craving for. We decided against getting water, brackets, bad move, or Wi-Fi, brackets, bad move, and headed to our campsite, one of 3 we had identified, to stay in for the night. We bumped down a 2-kilometre sandy track to the beach, and it is very idyllic. It's called Campo Beluga. Apart from, it's quite windy, and there's no Wi-Fi, and the water is brackish. So no amount of filtering took away the brackish flavour of the water. Luckily, there was a friend of the campsite owner, and he kindly let me siphon some drinking water out of his bottle in his truck, but now we're on to brackish for everything else. There has been no Telcel signal since San Felipe, and we are feeling rather out of touch with home. Hence, we should have got Wi-Fi at the shop. Got tucked up in the tent at 5:30 p.m.-ish, as usual, and whilst playing Scrabble, were treated to fireworks from our neighbours. Pretty impressive. I won the Scrabble. So yeah, in Mexico there, it was getting dark at about 5 p.m. when we first crossed the border, just to do with the time zone. So we were getting up at 5 and going to bed at 5. And so yeah, playing Scrabble. It's a way to pass the evening.
Okay, so that concludes part one. We're going to have a little interval. So hidden away at the back under some cloths, we've got some authentic Mexican drink, arroz de Jamaica, or hibiscus flowers, made into it's a drink that we got a lot. And there is some of these little, we just call them discs when we were out there. They're like, what are they like? They're like peanuts, like a bit like halva, a bit like marzipan, with peanuts, and they're sweet. And we demolished loads of them. So yeah, we found a shop that imports them and treat us to some Mexican food and drink during the interval. So we're going to pop down. We're going to have half an hour for a bit of a break. The tandem's at the back, a tent which is, got our sleeping kit in, some of our gear at the back, the flags of the countries that we went through, and if you've got any questions that you'd like us to ask, or anything you'd like us to cover that we can try and squeeze into the second part, then we will. But it's 8:10 now, so we'll get going again at 20 to 9. Thanks.
Just leave it. Just going to double tap the balance here.
It's edible, is it? I think it's like
One of the things you can believe get to that day,
It's just got a bit damp on the bottom. Sorry.
To that.
I mean, there was a bit of a delay.
Yeah.
So it's going through this. It's going through this here. Yeah, it's definitely going through the laptop. So it's probably we go here. Yeah, it's using the webcam.
Yes.
Okay. How about this?